Good morning, everyone. A real pleasure to be here, and welcome to the second day of Confidential Computing Summit. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the trends in confidential data and AI. So there is no question that more and more enterprises are using today AI in general and generative AI in particular. This is some data from the McKinsey report, and basically say on your left-hand side, there are reduction in cost for different business functions, and on the right-hand side, it's a revenue increase for the same business functions. And what this shows that over 30, for every of these business functions, there are typically 30% of more of the companies which either get a substantial revenue increase or substantial cost decrease by using generative AI. Some of the most important business functions are sales and marketing, because generative AI allows you to do personalized targeting. And the other one are product, service deployment, and IT. Trials, the tickets, chatbots to help you answer questions from your users, or customer support, and many more. This data is from 2023, but what is more impressive is the growth in adoption over the past year. So from 2023 to 2024, the growth in adopting AI has been from 55% to 72%, so 30% increase. And if you go to, if you focus only generative AI, the growth was from 33% to 65%. So double. And if you look at the companies who actually use generative AI in more than one use cases, business functions, then that number is from 51%, from 30% to 51%. 60% growth. So these growths are absolutely impressive. At the same time, as you know, generative AI is more and more leveraged for improving productivity of people. Copilot, right? You have copilots now for almost everything. Triaging your emails, writing reports, summary of the meetings, and of course, helping with your programs. Helping program developers. Anywhere, this is a study from Microsoft, a recent study from Microsoft, so the improved in the productivity, it's anyway from 26 to 73%. And improving productivity, what does that mean? With the same number of people, you can do more. You can bring the products to market faster, your services to market faster. You really can increase your competitive capabilities and win the market share. At the same time, which is a huge promise in generative AI in particular, and AI in general, companies are also more and more concerned about the security implications. 51% of the companies report that they are concerned about the privacy risk exposing the data. 69% are concerned about legal risks, right? Generative AI can increase the risk compared with the other technologies. For instance, many people, when they use a copilot for developing their applications, they ask ChatGPT or whatever, provide some code for this task. But that code can come from some GitHub repository which has no non-permissible license. And finally, 75% of the companies report security risk as compared with traditional technologies when using third parties, tools, or services. It's again, here, many of you have read about cases in which people send internal code, proprietary code, to ChatGPT to tell them what is the problem with the code, right? Or to summarize this document, right? So things are really serious here. And now, if you think about AI and generative AI, how do you get the edge as an enterprise? Your really edge is not the model. Typically, you use an open source model, so use ChatGPT, or everyone has access to these models. Your really edge is the data, right? To tune these models for your workloads, for your use cases, right? So more and more companies want to use more and more data. So you want to maximize the amount of data you can use to train this model, to fine-tune these models. And you have to do that by defining processes for data governance, because this data is in different silos in your company. It's not all, despite all our efforts over the past 15 years to have one Delta Lake or Lake House, we still have some, more to go. And finally, you want to quickly integrate this data into the AI models. So, what are the existing solutions, right? So for existing solution, you want more data? Well, you want to get access to more proprietary data or some more data from alternate sources. You want to process the data. The typical solution here is to have data catalogs, and there are more and more powerful data catalogs being released by companies like Databricks, Snowflake, and many more. And every cloud has its own data catalog. And if you want to quickly integrate data in your model, you are going to use one of these data platforms, like SageMaker or Snowflake, Databricks, and so forth. However, all these kind of solutions comes with significant limitations. For once, if you want to get to process more proprietary data, this is typically sensitive data. You need to protect it. The second is that while the data catalogs today provide you access control for each data set, even for rows in the data set, even for cells in a particular data set, they are still vulnerable with the advancement in AI-based re-identification attacks. So what this means is that you can have access to a public data set and then to another data set which is anonymized. And by correlating the fields from the two data sets, you can de-anonymize some of the data in the anonymized data set. Like for instance, one example is, say you get the records from a hospital, anonymized, right? But now you know, so when a public figure, because that's kind of in the newspapers, went to the hospital, maybe pregnancy or something, some other, for a check or things like that. So by correlating the data from the public records with the data from, when that particular person went to hospital from the anonymized data set, you can figure out the records in the anonymized data set which are associated with that person. Okay? And finally, there is no future proof. We are seeing right now there are more and more regulation being added, right? I read the other day that in the United States alone, there are 700 bills to regulate AI in some shape or form, including our own state. And finally, the number of applications, because generative AI is so general, the number of applications which use generative AI is exploding. You have these workspaces, notebooks, for users to do, data scientists and business analysts to do analysis, build pipelines, and reports. Data exchanges, right? There are more and more multi-party data collaboration, like multiple banks collaborating to catch money laundering activities and to detect money laundering activities. Business intelligence, Every executive in every company wants more and more reports, right? Can use Power BI and so forth, right? It's data-driven businesses. Dynamic training. Like I mentioned, you have a model, but then you want to enhance to your own data. And maybe you want to do that almost in an online method to get more data from interacting with your users. You want to further improve the model. So the model can constantly change. Data clean room, this is a classic application, the entire industry around it for marketing and advertisement. Merging different data sets so that you can better target, provide better targeting. And finally, gateways, like for the large language models applications. One is routing. You can have a prompt which you can route to different large language models depending you want to minimize the cost, improve the accuracy, and things like that. But these gateways can be more powerful, can strip away the personal identifier information, have guardrails built in, and more. So now you want to build all these applications. So what do you need to build this application, right? What do your engineers need for that? And it shouldn't come as a surprise, right? You want to have tools which are going to provide you security. And these tools, you want to use CPUs and GPUs as well. You want to be efficient, right? As you know, generative AI is very expensive. You should look no farther than NVIDIA stock. I think yesterday it became for a brief moment the second most valuable company, behind Microsoft, more valuable than Apple. Okay? You want flexibility. Why flexibility? The generative AI field is moving at a warp speed. Every day you hear about new models, new tools, right? Like, LangChain, AutoGPT, or things like that. And your engineers, they want to have access to all these tools to build your application better and faster. And finally, you need to have these tools to be easy to use, again, because you want to maximize the productivity of your developers. Now, there are existing solutions out there, right? Every cloud provides a confidential computing platform. It's a great start. However, when you look about these requirements, they really satisfy only the first one, right? It's not efficient if you want, for instance, to use distributed computing, and in many cases for AI, you have to use distributed computing. You need to secure the connection between this kind of hardware, enclaves. You need to do auto-scaling and all of these stuff. These tools typically do not provide that functionality. They are not as flexible. Again, you can because it's hard to use these distributed frameworks. And intuitive because typically they are not as intuitive because typically are low level. Opaque meets all these requirements. It's secure because it processes on the encrypted data. And it's also providing you verifiable audit trails. It's efficient because it supports these distributed frameworks from ground up, and it's optimized to support these frameworks. It's flexible for the same reason. It also provides the integration with your data. Again, I'm talking about verifiable audit trails. And it's intuitive because it provides you a notebook, provides your engineers a notebook to analyze the data, to build models, build pipelines, and so forth. So finally, let me talk about a few use cases which are enabled by Opaque. The first is cyber attack detection. This is in the context of the European Union, a particular cybersecurity agency from a particular state. What they want to collaborate with other agencies, security agencies in EU. So together, they are more effective in detecting cyber attacks. If you have a malware attack or any other attacks, If you aggregate the data and that attack is going to go and typically goes in multiple countries at the same time, if you can aggregate the data, you can detect with much higher accuracy and much quicker this kind of attacks, and then you can block them. Or even if it goes in one country first, if another country knows about this attack, can protect itself before the attack occurs. It's obvious, right? But now, every country in Europe, right, you have very strong regulation with respect to how is the confidentiality of the data, GDPR and so forth. Okay? So how do you use this data? How do you aggregate the data? So Opaque allows you to do that because each country can export the encrypted data to Opaque. Then they can agree and can attest the algorithms are going to be used on this data to detect the attacks. So you get the encrypted data, you attest the code of the algorithms which runs on the data, and when it detects an attack, it's going to send notification to the particular agencies. So basically, it allows you to do everything like if the data would have been in clear. The second example is a very typical example. So you have your enterprise, right? And you typically say they have your employees' data in workdays. And your executives wants to see some reports, right? About salaries, about the activity of your employees, their engagements, and so forth. And you want to ask your data scientist to prepare that reports, right? If you are an executive. But your data scientists don't have access, shouldn't, to that data, right? Because that's confidential. So how do you do that? Again, Opaques allow you to create these confidential data pipelines on the encrypted data in Opaque, and then provides the reports to the executives. Final example is manufacturing. And here, there is a very well-known automobile car company in Europe. And this car company, like almost any other car company, has dealerships across the globe. And they want to get as much information from these dealers. Demographics about who is buying my cars, how much they pay for it, what kind of options they do, what is the performance of different dealerships, how they compare, right? Again, in this case, the problem is that the dealers may sell also cars from other companies, and the dealers are different countries, and different countries have different regulation with respect to the confidentiality and the privacy of that data, right? So again, how do you do that? How does this car manufacturer get this information, right? To improve its business, right? So again, Opaque allows you to run these queries to provide you the reports on the encrypted data, so there is no leakage of the information from other car companies which use the same leaderships, or leakage from the particular buyers of your car. So in summary, things are quite simple. There is no question that generative AI, in particular, AI in general, are going to revolutionize every business. We already seeing the signs. Yes, maybe the hype is high now, we are on the hype cycles, according to Gartner, which probably is true. But long term, it's going to revolutionize everything. Now, every enterprise, of course, wants to take advantage of that. It's existential. If you don't take advantage of that, you are going to be left behind, right? You lose our market. You may cease to exist. And the edge of every company is in its data. So on one hand, you want to use more and more and more of this data. But on the other hand, there are more and more regulations with respect to AI, and we are still just the beginning. That's the problem. You want access to more data, proprietary data, alternate data, and the regulation with respect to confidentiality of the data, or even kind of AI algorithms and AI models, it's only going to grow. That's a big problem. And this is what confidential computing it's addressing. This is what Opaque is addressing, right? It allows you to do what you can do today on confidential data, on encrypted data. Very limited, with very limited overhead, using the existing tools, libraries, frameworks. So really it allows you to push the boundaries of how can you use generative AI in your business and to win. So finally, just want to mention about this AI confidential newsletter, which we are going to start. It's a letter for the community, by the community, in order to further educate everyone in the market about the importance of confidentiality security in the age of generative AI, and about the solutions to address these very challenging problems. Thank you.